When Rob and I were down at City Hall from 2010, 2014, I'll say even 2012, there's 540, I think 540 or 550 less police officers in Toronto than there were back then. We need safe subways, we need safe communities, but we also need bail reform. 13 premiers signed a letter over to the federal government. I understand they're going to be moving on it, but we can't have the bad guys shooting up the streets and all of a sudden going in front of the courts and getting let out literally the next day. It's unacceptable, but enough's enough with this crime. I've never seen anything like it. That should be the number one issue for any mayoral candidate. And the mayoral candidates that say they want to cut funding for the police, they want to defund the police, don't vote for them. Simple as that. Support the candidates that are going to fund the police. You're going to get more police officers in our subways, in our streets, because, again, I've never seen it this bad, ever, absolutely ever. And we need to make sure when we sentence these criminals, they need to go away for a long time without bail.
Premier is absolutely right on this file. We need bail reform. By the way, the call for bail reform, all 10 provincial premiers and the 3 premiers of the territory, so 13 out of 13, have told Ottawa, get going on this. So that's 100% buy-in for bail reform. And why? Well, look at the front page of the Sun today, folks. Justice system failure. You had, a couple of days ago, a 16-year-old boy at Keele subway station sitting on a bench, talking to his friend, minding his own business, and this maniac, without any kind of provocation whatsoever, Tamara, stabbed him to death. I mean, this is grotesque. And when we find out that he was out on numerous releases, why is that? Why are the Trudeau Liberals so tone deaf, Tamara, in terms of keeping the bad people behind bars? But no, with their gun clawback, they're going to go after, I don't know, Saskatchewan duck hunters because that's the real problem out there, someone going hunting in a rural environment. It's despicable. And like I said, when you have 13 out of 13 provincial and territorial leaders saying you got to address this, why aren't they addressing this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really the liberal or the progressive justice system policies that are the issue here. It's not necessarily more police on the ground. You can have policing every which way, but it's with these catch and release policies that we're seeing, these criminals are just going to be back out on the street the next day. The police are doing the work. They're doing their jobs. They're catching the criminals. They're arresting them. They're bringing them forward to these liberal leaning judges who are saying that, oh, well, they probably need a social worker or they need more social supports. We need to send them to the hospital for a mental health assessment. No, a lot of these people are criminals who have sociopathic minds who cannot be reintegrated into a successful civil society. And we have places for them, and they involve cement walls and bars because they are a danger to society. And so we're going to just see an increase in this with these progressive policies that are in place by the federal government. This, in my opinion, doesn't have anything to do with policing, because the police are out there catching the criminals, doing the enforcement, perhaps increasing the police presence. Yes. Although, at the same point in time, what we saw all throughout COVID was that police were focused on peaceful protesters and this idea that you could suppress viral spread by stomping on constitutional rights instead of focusing their efforts on actual crime. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, in my opinion, the focus on policing. I think that we have to have a more robust process for judges to be able to really come at some of these topics with impartiality rather than politically driven ideologies.
Well, I think, you're absolutely right, Tamara. And it's this prevailing philosophy of hug a thug. And I'll give you another example. On Friday, the Ombudsman for Toronto released a report essentially condemning the Toronto Police Service and the City of Toronto for the way they handled the removal of illegal encampments in Toronto parks. Now, these were, and I speak from experience, folks, going to Trinity Bellwoods and having a crack addict sick his dangerous dog on me, sinking its fangs into my thigh. And the idea that this ombudsman, you didn't say pretty please, you didn't set up some sort of support network or what have you. Tamara, here's the deal. With a public park, you have the right to visit it, no matter who you are. But you do not have the right to camp there. You do not have the right to do dangerous drugs. You do not have the right to harbor dangerous dogs. You don't have the right to defecate and urinate in the park. You don't have the right to drop syringes and condoms in the playground where mothers are taking their toddlers to play. And yet, somehow, this ombudsman said it was significant unfairness in cleaning up these encampments. Tamara, these squatters were breaking at least 11 or 12 sections of the Trespass Act, not for a day or two or a week or two, but for several months. In fact, I think in some parks you've had people there for years. And what I'm saying is that not all homeless are dangerous, but some are dangerous. And this idea that we have to embrace a hug-a-thug mentality, I say when you are dealing with a dangerous person, that person is behind bars, or if there's mental illness behind that dangerous person's behavior, then you incarcerate him in a mental institution. But no, the left doesn't believe in that. They're all about embracing this for whatever reason while maintaining a mantra of defund the police, like get rid of law enforcement to protect you and I and our viewers from these characters. None of this makes sense.
Yeah, I think the bringing back institutionalized medicine for people suffering from very severe mental health issues. There are that. I'm not a psychologist and I would never pretend to be one, but I think there's very real clinical diagnosis that can happen with a lot of these people. And we used to put them into mental health institutions. And now that we don't have those because they were inhumane and infringing on human rights and whatever the other progressive flowery language that was used around that was, well, we're seeing the fallout of those policies. So I would expect more of it, not less, despite police presence, because we're not actually fixing any part of the system that is failing by throwing some more police at it.
That's a clip from something we call Rebel News Daily. It's our daily live stream hosted by my friend David Menzies, but the show also includes a rotating cast of hosts and special guests, including me. It's a great way for us to talk about the news of the day as the news is happening in an unscripted fashion, and it's an awesome way for you to interact with us as well. We stream every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, wherever you find Rebel News. See you there.